Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're diving into an absolutely incredible true story of massive culture shock. Picture this. A seasoned Japanese systems engineer steps right into the fast-paced, hyper-modern financial district of London. They literally have no idea that their entire professional worldview is about to get turned completely upside down. It's honestly like the ultimate protagonist training arc. Let's just jump right into the experience that completely rewired this engineer's map of what it actually means to be a global IT professional. 5 of us walked in. One engineer overwhelmed us. Seriously, imagine being part of this highly skilled team of 5. You step into a world-class financial tech center overseas, totally expecting to meet this equally massive, specialized team on the other side. But nope. Instead, you're greeted by just one person. One single person who is flawlessly handling this entire complex operation. It sets up this wild mystery, right? Like, how on earth could one person manage a system that usually takes a whole department to run? Well, to really grasp the sheer weight of this shock, we kind of need to understand our protagonist first. At the time this all went down, they were in their 8th year as a working pro. They had this incredibly solid, proven track record building systems over in Japan. They were a total expert in Java 4, which back then was the absolute bleeding edge of tech. They'd managed heavy-duty enterprise systems, tackled multiple domestic projects. Basically, they were super confident. They were pumped to work with these overseas engineers in London because they thought they knew exactly what to expect. But man, those expectations were about to be completely shattered. So that brings us to Section 1, the documentation difference. So the first major mind-blowing moment didn't even happen on the ops floor. It actually happened before the training even started, right in the prep phase. Our engineer sits down, bracing themselves to study what they assumed would be mountains of dense, impossible-to-read documentation. Because in Japan, our protagonist was totally used to these highly complex documents that only seasoned, niche experts could decode. But the London system, it was completely different. Even though it was heavily customized and built in-house, the manuals were just unbelievably well organized. They were structured logically, honestly, kind of like software itself. And this brilliantly illustrates their whole philosophy: make it understandable for anyone. They were dead set on building a system that absolutely did not rely on specific gatekeeping individuals. All right, let's move on to Section 2, 1 engineer, 9 monitors. Okay, so that documentation philosophy, that was literally just the appetizer. The real shocker, the visually unforgettable scene that broke our protagonist's brain, happened when the visiting team finally walked onto the actual operations center floor. Picture this high-tech London ops room, 9 giant monitors stacked together at a single workstation. It's like this massive glowing wall of data. And sitting right in front of it, just one operator, monitoring the entire financial system, alone. By the way, if you're as fascinated by this crazy solo setup as I am, take a quick sec to subscribe and hit that like button. Quick book. It really helps us bring more of these awesome deep dives straight to you. But anyway, what's truly wild here isn't just the crazy hardware. It's what that solo operator could actually do. This one person seamlessly walked them through an unbelievably broad scope of knowledge. I mean, they covered the high-level business overview, the nitty-gritty technical details, the entire operational design, and even the overarching philosophy for handling failures. They just explained the whole shebang, right on the spot. Remember, the visiting Japanese team brought 5 specialized engineers. London basically brought 1. Our protagonist couldn't even process it. It totally defied every single thing they understood about how IT teams were supposed to function. Which brings us to Section 3, Japan versus global IT. So you've got to ask, why was there such a massive gap in how these teams operated? Let's break down the core differences in team structure and specialization. In the traditional Japanese approach, roles are safely, neatly divided. You've got your infrastructure engineer, your database engineer, ops engineer, application engineer. Everything is highly segmented. But in London, one unified engineer deeply understood the whole system. They crossed business, system, operational, and customer boundaries like it was absolutely nothing. Now, obviously, there was a larger team behind the scenes in London, but the sheer range of knowledge demanded from just one person on the front lines was totally overwhelming to someone used to strict specialization. It really boils down to this. The Japanese philosophy tends to be increase the number of people to reduce risk. But the London philosophy? Keep it simple with highly capable individuals. That's a heavy, profound realization about cultural philosophy, isn't it? Real quick, if you're finding this deep dive into workplace culture insightful, definitely subscribe and drop a like on the explainer. Click. Perfect. We're about to head into the most inspiring part of the story. Now, you might be wondering, okay, what's the actually day-to-day benefit of this London approach? Well, entrusting all this broader responsibility to highly capable, cross-functional people yields some massive perks. Decision-making becomes so much faster because you aren't waiting around for input from 5 different siloed departments. Meetings are way shorter, responsibilities are crystal clear, and honestly, the thing that shocked our protagonists the absolute most, these London engineers worked significantly less overtime. No way, right? Okay, let's dive into section 4, not heroes, just systems. So, are these London engineers basically superheroes? Were they just born absolute geniuses? The answer is a flat no. Looking back, our protagonists realized this wasn't about superhuman individual talent. It was simply the product of a vastly different organizational and systemic design culture. The real drivers here are totally systemic. It all comes down to their training, the deep sense of ownership they instill, their core system design philosophy, that incredibly accessible documentation culture we talked about earlier, and just really effective delegation. The whole structural foundation is built to empower individuals to be this capable.
Ultimately, it really is a tale of contrasting operational goals. In Japan, the cultural priority often defaults to do not fail, and that leads to heavy review cultures, extreme caution, and highly segmented risk management. But the overseas priority at this London center, it was be able to operate independently. Now, I want to be super clear here. Neither approach is absolutely right or wrong. I mean, Japanese quality is world-renowned specifically because of that careful, specialized approach. But the structural difference between these two priorities is just huge, and it creates two completely different breeds of engineers.
For our protagonist, this London trip was literally life-changing. It completely popped their specialized little bubble. For the first time in their entire 8-year career, they could objectively look in the mirror and understand exactly what I can do, and more importantly, what I still cannot do. It was a humbling, but honestly incredibly empowering personal transformation. They realized that the whole map of what an engineer could be was vastly larger than they ever thought possible. And that brings us to our final takeaway. Our engineer realized that the world is huge, and it is absolutely worth challenging. They walked away from that Ops Center totally inspired, deciding to take that first big step the very next day. So I want to leave you with this. The world is huge. What first step are you going to take tomorrow to challenge your own boundaries? Whether you're an engineer, a creative, whatever you do, how can you step outside your specialized silo and take broader ownership of your work? Think about it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I'll catch you in the next one.